Welcome to Meow Diaries, stories designed to help you relax and fall asleep. Tonight, I have prepared a new story for you, a tale about a cat, gentle exploration of the night's quiet embrace, where each step through moonlit stillness whispers of presence, connection, and the soft return to home. It's a journey through solitude into the comforting hush of sleep. Before we start the story, I would love for you to support the channel. Just click like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments how you are feeling tonight. It means a lot to me, even if it's just a word. I would like to share a little secret that can help you relax and fall asleep more easily. Instead of just listening, try to imagine each scene vividly. The colors, the sounds, even the smells. The more your mind gets into the game, the more it will calm down and gently guide you to sleep. Let's take a deep breath. Slowly, and exhale gently. Again, inhale. And exhale. Feel your body relax. Feel your thoughts begin to fade away. Now find a comfortable position. Close your eyes, and let's begin the story. Ready? Let's begin. In the quiet hush between midnight and dawn, when the world's breath thins to a whisper, she stirred. The room was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from the garden below, its perfume curling under the door like a secret. Moonlight sifted through the curtain's hem, draping her coat in a liquid silver that rippled softly as she moved. A slow, deliberate stretch sent a shiver down her spine, each muscle awakening to the night's call. The world beyond the window lay still, caught in a moment between silence and sigh, as though holding its breath for her. The weight of the room, the comforting scent of worn timber, and the faint hum of the fridge's sleep pressed in quietly, urging her to stay. Yet the night's pull was stronger, a gentle, insistent tide drawing her toward its cool embrace. It was not a compulsion, but rather an invitation, as if the night itself had reached out a soft paw to beckon her forward. With a slow, almost soundless step, she padded across the floorboards, the pads of her paws whispering against the wood. Her tail, half raised, brushed against the frame of the door as she slipped through, each movement deliberate, as though the house itself might wake if she rushed. The air beyond was different, cooler, a touch of the earth's breath, mingling with the scent of damp leaves and soft dust. She paused, whiskers quivering, tasting the gentle shift of the world beyond the walls. The doorway opened onto a narrow path, its edges softened by clumps of grass and the low hush of lavender brushing against her fur. Overhead, the moon hung heavy and round, its light settling like a soft shawl upon her shoulders. She could feel the pulse of the world beneath her paws, each blade of grass breathing, each petal folding into sleep. Somewhere nearby, the soft creak of a wind-touched branch joined the faint sigh of a garden gate settling into its hinges. She paused by the open door, nose tilted to the night, her whiskers trembling as if they could taste the moon. The garden lay in dappled light, where shadows of the fence danced like slow-moving spirits, and blades of grass glistened with the dew's soft touch. Somewhere distant, a moth traced lazy circles beneath a pale porch light, its wings a fragile echo of dreams. Its tiny wings whispered against the stillness, their rhythm as delicate as a breath. The cat's ears turned toward the faintest sounds, a far-off rustle of a tree's leaves, the soft scuttle of something unseen, the deep, slow heartbeat of the night. Yet there was no fear, only a sense of quiet invitation. The world had opened itself, laying a path of silver and shadows, and she, wrapped in her silence, answered. Her body moved with liquid grace, a ripple of softness against the hush of night. Each paw fall was a wordless promise to tread lightly, to honor the quiet that stretched beneath the moon's gaze. The familiar warmth of home receded gently behind her, replaced by the cool embrace of the night. She did not look back. The scent of grass rose around her, cool and damp, mingling with the fainter perfume of earth and wood. Her tail brushed along the garden's edge, touching stems of lavender and leaves that trembled under her passing. The moon above watched without judgment, a silent sentinel casting soft light over her journey. In the distance, a breeze shifted, stirring branches and sending a soft shiver through the world. She paused, ears forward, feeling the night's pulse steadying around her. Her whiskers quivered with the knowledge that this first step into the unknown, into the hush of solitude, was both ordinary and profound. She reached the garden's boundary, where the fence met the lane beyond, its wooden slats softened by lichen and time. Here, she pressed her nose to a familiar crack in the wood, breathing in the layered scents of soil, moss, and distant rain. Beyond, the lane stretched into deeper shadow, inviting her with its cool hush. She lingered a moment longer, listening to the faint rustle of leaves above and the soft sigh of the earth below. Even the stars seemed to breathe in unison, their silent shimmer weaving through the dark. The weight of sleep pressed gently at the edges of her mind, but the night's invitation was stronger, calling her onward with a patient whisper. At last, she slipped through a gap in the fence, her fur brushing softly against the wood. The world beyond felt wider, yet wrapped her in its silence, as if cradling her steps. The familiar became distant, and the unknown became a quiet companion. The journey into the night had truly begun, not with a rush, not with a cry, but with the simple grace of breath meeting moonlight. The gap in the fence welcomed her softly, the old wood bearing its slight curve like a familiar friend. On the other side, the lane unspooled itself beneath her paws, worn earth and scattered stones, each piece a muted testament to countless quiet wanderings. She paused, allowing the breeze to lift her whiskers, to carry the scents of the night across her nose. Damp earth, a trace of eucalyptus from a tree nearby, and the faintest echo of wattle flowers, their sleepy fragrance still lingering even in the moon's cool glow. Above her, the moon hung full and round, its light pooling over the lane in soft, silvery ribbons. Shadows clustered in gentle patches at the base of trees, beneath fences, along garden walls. But there was no malice in their shapes, only the familiar folding of darkness into itself. She stepped forward, her paws finding the subtle dips and rises in the earth as though they had been placed there just for her. Each movement was measured, graceful, her body becoming a part of the night's rhythm. The lane curved slightly, leading her past a garden where roses, their petals pale and heavy with dew, leaned into the moonlight. She paused to brush her whiskers along their edges, feeling the delicate tremble of petals under her touch. A moth stirred nearby, wings catching the moon's glow, and she watched it drift upwards before disappearing into the dark canopy of a tree. It was a quiet, unhurried moment, one where time felt as though it had slowed to the soft beat of her heart. As she continued, the lane opened into a small clearing where wild grasses swayed gently in the breeze. Their feathery tips brushed against her sides, whispering secrets in voices only the night could hear. She felt the cool tickle of grass against her belly as she moved through, a subtle grounding that spoke of Earth's steady patience. Above, stars shimmered faintly, their light scattered like a dusting of quiet thoughts across the sky. The breeze, gentle but insistent, carried the scent of damp wood and distant water, hinting at hidden places waiting just beyond sight. She paused again, settling onto her haunches, her gaze drawn to the moon's slow drift across the sky. The world around her was layered with quiet, each sound, each movement, softened by distance and shadow. Even the distant rustle of a possum in a tree seemed wrapped in gentleness, a sound that acknowledged her presence without intrusion. The earth beneath her felt cool, steady, a silent witness to her journey. Her tail curled softly around her paws, and for a moment she simply sat, breathing in the night, allowing its stillness to settle into her bones. The garden she had left behind felt distant, not through absence, but through the gentle acceptance of space. She was not lost. She was simply a part, embraced by the quiet vastness of the world that stretched around her. The moon's light caught in her eyes, and for a moment she seemed to hold its glow within her, a quiet reflection of the world's pale, patient gaze. A soft rustle in the grass drew her attention, and she turned her head to watch a beetle's slow journey across a stone. Its dark shell gleamed faintly, quiet persistence that mirrored her own. There was no urgency, no fear, only the quiet understanding that night was a place for such wanderings, for steps taken without the need for destination, for moments spent in silent observation. When she rose again, her body unfolded with the same quiet grace, each muscle moving as though guided by the night's own rhythm. She stepped forward, her paws finding the faint trail that led beyond the clearing, a path traced by the moon's silver touch. The world felt larger now, yet somehow more intimate, a place not to be conquered or understood, but simply walked through, felt, breathed in. As she moved on, the breeze stirred again, carrying with it the scent of her home, faint but present, a thread of warmth and memory woven through the cool air. It was not a call, not yet, but a gentle reminder that she was not untethered. The journey was still unfolding, each step a quiet part of a larger whole. She let the scent drift around her, a soft presence at her back, and continued forward into the waiting night. The path narrowed as it curved away from the clearing, threading between low bushes and overgrown ferns that brushed softly against her flanks. The world felt denser here. The moonlight filtered through layers of branches, laying dappled patterns on the earth like scattered whispers. Each step brought her deeper into a tapestry woven from scent and sound, where the cool tang of eucalyptus mingled with the faint sweetness of flowering vines, and the night's breath stirred the leaves into gentle murmurs. She moved slowly, her paws silent on the cool ground, feeling the subtle shift in texture beneath her, the powdery touch of dust giving way to the slight resistance of moss, then the crisp crackle of fallen leaves. A gentle rustling came from a low shrub to her right, a small bird perhaps, disturbed in its sleep, its soft wings beating a quiet rhythm against the night. She stilled, head tilted, listening to the subtle shift of air, the faint echo of tiny heartbeats just beyond the veil of shadow. Further ahead, the path widened slightly, revealing a low stone wall, half crumbling with age and wrapped in tendrils of ivy. She approached it with cautious reverence, the rough stone cool beneath her pads as she leapt lightly atop it. From this quiet perch, she gazed outward, the garden's edge a patchwork of moonlit spaces and deep shadowed corners. Beyond, an open paddock stretched softly under the stars, a space that seemed to breathe with her, each rise and fall of the ground echoing the slow rhythm of her own breath. A moth fluttered past, its wings pale against the darker leaves, tracing delicate arcs as though sketching stories only the night could read. She followed its path with her eyes, feeling the soft pull of curiosity, yet remaining still, her body at ease against the solid comfort of stone. The air stirred faintly, carrying with it a trace of something distant, perhaps the scent of rain yet to come, or the cool breath of the ocean's far-off tide. Behind her, shadows deepened along the fence line, their edges softened by the moon's touch. Shapes moved gently, not in threat, but with the quiet presence of the unseen. Branches shifting, small creatures foraging, the world continuing its slow dance without pause. She felt no need to follow, no urge to chase. Instead, she remained, a quiet observer, a thread woven into the fabric of the night's unfolding. The stone wall beneath her seemed to hum softly, its rough edges warming slightly under the gentle pressure of her body. She flexed her claws lightly, feeling the texture of the rock, grounding herself in the quiet here and now. Around her, the garden held its breath, as if listening too, as if sharing in the hush that settled over this corner of the world. The air cooled further, the sense of damp earth rising stronger as a soft breeze stirred through the branches. Leaves rustled, their edges catching faint moonlight, creating the illusion of movement where there was none. She watched them, mesmerized by their gentle dance, her tail twitching slightly in response. Each sound was measured, each shift a note in the quiet symphony of night. A faint chirrup came from overhead, a solitary night bird, its voice a single wavering thread that rose and fell before fading into the hush. The cat's ears twitched toward the sound, acknowledging its presence, but her gaze remained on the soft interplay of shadow and light before her. Here, beneath the branches and the low-hung moon, the world felt balanced, neither fully asleep nor truly awake, but suspended in a moment of quiet waiting. After a while, she stretched, her body flowing like liquid shadow, and stepped down from the stone wall. The earth accepted her return with a soft sigh, the moss cool beneath her paws. She continued along the path, weaving between shadow and moonlight, her steps slow and sure, as though each carried its own quiet significance. The night unfolded around her, offering no answers, only presence, and she, in her silent journey, accepted its gentle companionship. The path eased into a clearing where the ground felt softer beneath her paws, thick with fallen leaves and mosses that muffled even her lightest steps. Here, the night pressed closer, not with weight, but with intimacy, as though the trees themselves leaned in to whisper secrets only the moon could hear. Overhead, branches arched high, their silhouettes intricate lacework against the night's pale sky. The air hung still, wrapped in a gentle hush, broken only by the faint drip of moisture from leaves to earth. She paused at the clearing's edge, her breath slow, her body poised in quiet stillness. A coolness kissed her fur, settling along her spine like a remembered touch. The scent of rain lingered, subtle but sure, and beneath it, the deep, grounding aroma of soil and bark. She took a step forward, feeling the moss yield softly, its dampness rising through her pads, anchoring her to the earth. The stillness here was not emptiness, it was presence, a gentle pause where the world held its breath. Ahead, a shallow pond mirrored the moon's light, its surface unbroken save for the occasional ripple when a breeze stirred the reeds. She approached slowly, each step measured, her reflection a shifting ghost against the water's glassy surface. At the edge, she lowered her head to drink, her tongue brushing the cool water, tasting the night itself, subtle, earthy, tinged with the sharpness of stone. The pond's silence deepened around her, embracing her with the quiet patience of an old friend. She lifted her head and gazed across the water, her eyes tracing the lines where shadows softened into moonlit shapes. The trees beyond stood tall and silent, their branches feathered with leaves that barely trembled. The stars above shimmered faintly, their light more a suggestion than illumination. In this space, she felt the boundaries of the world blur. The air thickened with stillness, her body anchored yet weightless, as though the pond, the trees, the stars, and her breath were part of a single, endless moment. A faint sound, almost imagined, broke the quiet, the softest flutter of wings, a low murmur of feathers shifting in the branches. She stilled completely, her ears tilting towards the sound, not in alarm, but in shared awareness. The night's inhabitants moved as she did, in rhythms that honored the quiet. There was no need to chase, no desire to disturb, only a mutual understanding of presence, a recognition of shared space beneath the moon's watchful gaze. Time here felt fluid, marked only by the slow drift of clouds across the sky and the gentle exhale of the breeze. She settled by the water's edge, her body curling into a loose, relaxed coil, tail draped softly over her paws. The moss cushioned her weight, cool and yielding. Her eyes half closed, not in sleep, but in quiet attunement to the world around her. The night's breath moved over her fur, a gentle caress that soothed without urgency. The moon's reflection shimmered faintly, its glow painting her coat in subtle silver that shifted with each breath. In this still place, she felt no need to move forward, no pull of time or distance. She was simply here, present, a small, silent part of the night's vast, breathing body. The world did not demand anything of her, nor did she ask anything of it. There was only the quiet rhythm of being, of breath, of heartbeat against the earth. For a long while, she remained there, eyes tracing the slow dance of shadows, ears attuned to the faint sounds of leaves stirring and water lapping gently against the shore. The stillness was not empty, but filled with quiet presence, the kind that wrapped softly around her, inviting her to simply be. And in that soft, enveloping hush, she allowed herself to rest, not fully asleep, but in a state of gentle peace, a waiting that was itself enough. When she stirred, it was not with a start, but with the subtle realization that the night had shifted around her. The breeze, once playful against her whiskers, had softened into a cool hush, wrapping her in a quiet, almost indistinguishable from stillness. The pond's surface was undisturbed, save for the faintest ripples trailing from a moth that had briefly touched its mirror-like face before continuing its errant flight. She rose slowly, stretching each limb as though drawing the night itself through her muscles. The coolness of the moss pressed into her pads, anchoring her back into the world's steady pulse. The scent of damp leaves and earth lingered, but there was something else now, a faint hint of wood smoke, perhaps from a distant hearth, mingling with the cool air. It was subtle, a trace of something human, a reminder of homes settled quietly under roofs, of places where light glowed behind curtained windows. The cat stood at the edge of the clearing, her gaze tracing the silver thread of the moon's light as it reached out across the pond and into the trees beyond. The distance between her and home felt both vast and intimate, a space held not by distance alone, but by the awareness of absence. There was no fear in this knowledge, no longing sharp enough to bite. Instead, it was a quiet acknowledgement. She was away, and yet not lost. The scent of home lingered, faint but steady, like a soft echo against the night. A soft rustle nearby drew her attention, a leaf turning under the weight of something small, a beetle perhaps, or a night moth settling against the bark of a tree. The sound was ordinary, but it resonated through the hush, a reminder that the world moved on, each quiet life carrying its own small significance. She watched for a moment longer, her tail resting still against the moss, her ears flicking to catch the soft shuffle of distant leaves. When she stepped forward, it was with the same unhurried grace, each pawfall deliberate, the pads of her feet finding familiar textures in the ground beneath her. The world felt denser now, not heavy, but layered, as though each shadow held 1,000 stories, waiting to be heard. Her whiskers trembled as she passed under low branches, their leaves trailing lightly along her spine. A quiet touch that left her coat tingling with recognition. Above her, the moon had shifted higher, its glow diffused, by a faint haze of cloud that softened the edges of light and shadow. The stars behind it remained steady, their scattered points a map she would not follow, but whose presence comforted nonetheless. She moved through the hush, her breath slow and even, her body attuned to the quiet pull of the world's unseen currents. A distant sound, a faint creak of a gate, the soft murmur of wind through hollow branches reached her ears. It was familiar in a way that wasn't precise, a sound that carried the memory of home without demanding a return. She paused, her eyes half closed, listening to the way the night folded around her, the layers of scent and sound weaving a tapestry of presence and space. There was no urgency, no pressing need to leave, only the subtle shift of knowing she could, when the time felt right. As she stood there, the world expanded inward, as though the distance between her and the quiet walls of home was not measured in steps, but in the gentle recognition of connection. The scent of wood smoke drifted again, a reminder that somewhere beyond the hush, warmth waited, a place where sleep would be soft and untroubled. But for now, the night still held her, its quiet companionship a gift freely given. She moved forward, not toward home, but deeper into the layers of night, her body a soft shadow among shadows, her steps a quiet promise to continue, to listen, to feel the hush as it settled deeper into her bones. She moved onward, tracing a path softened by fallen leaves and tangled grass, each step measured and sure. The air had thickened subtly, a quiet coolness settling around her limbs, carrying the scent of distant rain mingled with the faint breath of flowering gum. Above, clouds gathered in delicate wisps, veiling the moon's glow and casting a muted, silvered light across the earth. The stars flickered faintly, their distant fires offering gentle reassurance, a celestial murmur of presence rather than brightness. She paused near a crooked tree, its trunk twisted by wind and age, its limbs draped in pale lichen, brushing her body lightly against the bark. She felt the tree's rough texture catch her fur, grounding her in the moment's simplicity. Nearby, a single leaf detached from a branch, spiraling downwards with the languid grace of something surrendering itself to the inevitable. It landed softly on the damp earth at her paws, a quiet gesture of letting go. The night had begun to shift around her, imperceptibly at first, but now with a softness that hinted at change. The hush was no longer as inviting. It felt like a gentle hand placed lightly on her shoulder, a reminder of something waiting beyond. A scent drifted through the cooling air, familiar yet faint, traces of warmth, of soil disturbed by footfalls, of eucalyptus leaves crushed beneath passing steps. It whispered of home, of the place she'd left behind in moonlit silence, and with it came a quiet realization that her journey was not without an end. She lifted her head, tasting the air with careful breaths, each inhalation drawing the memory of comfort closer. The world behind her remained patient, offering no command to return, but her body responded to the subtle pull, a slow, almost reluctant awareness that the moment of wandering had reached its natural arc. Her whiskers twitched, brushing the cool night as she turned slightly, her movements unhurried, yet deliberate, a silent decision woven through muscle and bone. The path ahead, which had felt expansive and infinite, now seemed softened at the edges, as though inviting her back. The breeze carried whispers of foliage stirring, and the faintest sound of a bird's wing shifting against feathers high in a distant tree. These were not the urgent calls of a world needing her return, but soft signals of transition, a quiet invitation rather than a summons. With each careful step, she retraced her way through the overgrown grass, her paws brushing aside dew-laden leaves and dislodging tiny beads of moisture that clung to her fur. The cool dampness was no longer unfamiliar, but a gentle presence that accompanied her, a reminder that the night's embrace had never been total. The scent of home, the worn wood, the soft echo of her own sleeping place, threaded its way more strongly through the air now, each inhalation drawing it closer, each exhalation softening the hold of distance. A pale moth darted past, its erratic flight a flicker of movement against the gathering hush. She watched its path, her eyes reflecting the moon's diminished glow, then let it fade into the shadows. Her tail lifted slightly, a subtle expression of readiness, though she lingered another heartbeat longer beneath the twisted tree, allowing herself to absorb the last of the night's quiet gifts. The clouds overhead thickened, the moon slipping further behind their veils, casting the world into a deeper, more intimate shade of gray. She stepped forward, paws finding familiar ground, each movement a quiet affirmation of the shift from a wandering to return. There was no urgency in her pace, no regret in the turning, only the gentle acceptance of cycles, the recognition that departure holds within it the quiet promise of homecoming. The path unwound before her, soft beneath her paws, a familiar thread guiding her steps. Though the hush of the night remained, it carried with it a sense of quiet release, as though the world had exhaled after holding its breath. She walked with measured grace, her body a ripple of shadow moving through the silver-dappled dark. The scent of home had grown stronger now, not sharp or sudden, but a slow blooming of warmth, notes of timber and dust, of the faint trace of old fabric, and the memory of sunlight fading into walls. It threaded through the cool air, mingling with the sense of damp earth and crushed leaves, weaving a quiet tether between the present moment and the soft refuge waiting beyond the night. Around her, the world shifted subtly. The rustling leaves gave way to a softer silence, broken only by the occasional crackle of twigs beneath her paws. The moon's glow had diminished, cloaked by drifting clouds that painted the landscape in shades of gray and muted blue. Even the breeze had quieted, its earlier playful touch now a gentle breath against her fur. The trees stood tall and still, their branches tracing soft arcs against the night sky, their quiet presence accompanying her journey. She paused near a low stone wall, its surface cool and rough beneath her pads. With a slow stretch, she rubbed her cheek against its edge, leaving behind a trace of her scent, a quiet mark of passage, a soft declaration of belonging. The wall, in its silent stillness, seemed to acknowledge her, offering a grounding point between the vastness of the night and the nearing comfort of home. Her steps continued, threading through narrow spaces where branches arched overhead, their leaves forming a gentle tunnel that cradled her passage. Here, the scents deepened, the musk of damp soil, the subtle sweetness of jasmine just beginning to open in the cool air, the faintest trace of something human and warm. The familiar weight of her surroundings pressed closer, not heavy, but reassuring, a gentle pull toward the known. As she neared the garden's edge, the air thickened with scents of lavender and rosemary, their leaves stirred softly by the returning breeze. The path grew clearer, the shapes of fences and trees becoming more distinct in the soft light. She moved slower now, her pace easing into a rhythm that mirrored her heartbeat, a gentle, steady cadence carrying her closer to the quiet threshold of home. The hush around her deepened, but it was no longer the vast quiet of the open night. Instead, it was an intimate stillness, the kind that settles within walls, around corners, where shadows soften and voices hush to whispers. She could almost feel the gentle weight of the door ahead, the familiar touch of worn wood beneath her paws, the subtle shift of air as she crossed into the space where night meets sleep. A faint rustle behind her, a leaf settling, a moth brushing against a low branch, stirred her ears, but she did not turn. The night, patient and forgiving, released her gently, its embrace loosening without resistance. She continued forward, her paws finding the familiar curve of the garden's path, the low hum of the world narrowing into the quiet, waiting silence of home. Her tail lifted slightly, not in greeting, but in gentle acknowledgement, a silent recognition of the night's quiet gift. As the last stretch of path unfurled beneath her, she felt the softness of familiar earth beneath her pads, the subtle scent of hearth and shadow welcoming her back. The night behind her remained vast, but within its depths, a quiet thread of connection had woven itself, carrying her forward toward rest. The garden greeted her with its familiar embrace, the lavender brushing her legs, the rosemary releasing a subtle, fragrant sigh beneath her passing. She slipped along the path with measured grace, her breath steady, each inhalation tasting of dew-laden air and the comforting nearness of walls enclosing the space. The house loomed softly ahead, its outline dark against the faint glow of dawn's earliest light, a quiet sentinel waiting without question or demand. She stepped lightly onto the porch, the worn boards cool beneath her paws, their gentle creak a familiar voice. The door, slightly ajar from the night's breeze, offered a welcome, its edges softened by the dim light pooling at its threshold. She paused at the doorway, her gaze sweeping the stillness within. The quiet hum of the world outside dimmed into a softer hush, a near silence where shadows settled into corners and the air carried the scent of home. Wool blankets, old timber, the faintest memory of sun-warmed dust. She stepped through without haste, her body folding into the space as though it had always belonged there, the night's distance slipping away with each careful breath. Inside, the floor was cool against her pads, and she moved with unhurried grace, her steps whispering against the grain of the wood. A low, worn rug invited her closer, its fibers soft beneath her weight as she settled into a loose curl. The scents around her shifted, no longer the wild freshness of night, but the quiet comfort of familiarity. Linen faintly perfumed with lavender, the earthy trace of her own presence woven into the fabric of home. Her eyes closed slowly, lids heavy with the weight of the journey, yet lightened by the return. The hush around her deepened, the faint sounds of the world outside, the distant rustle of trees, the sigh of the breeze, fading into a softer quiet. Her breath slowed, each exhale a quiet release, each inhale drawing in the gentle rhythm of sleep. The night outside lingered, the moon now low against the horizon, its light paling into the first hints of dawn. Shadows shifted along the walls, elongating, then softening, as though the world itself was preparing to rest. In this quiet space, she felt the weight of solitude transform, not into loneliness, but into the soft, embracing silence of being at home, of being held. Her body relaxed fully, muscles loosening beneath the soft weight of fur, her tail draping lightly over her paws. The scent of the garden clung faintly to her coat, mingling with the warmth of the house, a quiet merging of worlds. Her breath settled into a slow, even rhythm, her heart beat soft against the hush, as though she was sinking into the very fabric of the night's quiet tapestry. And as the night settled, she closed her eyes, allowing the world to fade into quiet dreams.